They laughed at a veteran's meal voucher. 5 minutes later, Marines blocked the door. The laughter came first, sharp, cutting, and cruel. It sliced through the hum of the small-town diner like a blade, turning heads and freezing spoons midair. At the center of it stood an old man in a weathered jacket, his hand outstretched with a paper meal voucher. His voice, low and steady, had just asked a simple question: "Will this cover my breakfast?" But before the cashier could answer, a group of young men near the counter erupted in mocking laughter. "Guess war heroes can't even afford bacon," one of them sneered. The veteran didn't flinch. His posture, though bent with age, carried the weight of someone who had stood through storms far louder than this. His eyes stayed fixed on the voucher, as though the insults weren't meant for him at all. Yet the redness creeping into his knuckles as he gripped the counter betrayed what he felt inside. He had been here before, not in this diner, but in this moment. A moment where respect was tested, where silence had to hold its ground against noise. Years ago, the smell of dust and diesel had filled his lungs as he crouched in the belly of a transport plane, heading into a desert that swallowed men whole. He remembered the heat burning through his boots, the sting of sweat sliding into his eyes, the sound of his friend's laughter just minutes before that same friend was gone. Those memories never faded. They lived in the corners of his mind like ghosts who refused to leave. He had given more than his body to service. He had given his youth, his peace, his simple chance to live an ordinary life. And now, decades later, all he wanted was a quiet meal. The cashier shifted uncomfortably, her eyes darting between the veteran and the men who mocked him. Around the room, bystanders pretended to scroll through their phones, their silence screaming louder than the laughter had. Nobody spoke. Nobody stepped forward. The veteran slid the voucher closer and whispered to himself, "Dignity doesn't beg." But the disrespect didn't stop. One of the men grabbed a napkin and held it out like a flag. "Here, old man," he jeered. "Maybe trade this for toast." The veteran's hand hovered in the air for a second, just 1 second, as if deciding whether to fold or to stand. And then, quietly, he stood taller. There was a flicker in his gaze, something almost imperceptible, like a storm gathering behind calm skies. Outside, a black SUV rolled to a slow stop. Then another, and another. The diner's bell jingled as the door swung open, and in walked 3 Marines, their uniforms crisp, their movements deliberate. They didn't say a word. They simply took their positions, broad shoulders filling the doorway, boots planting firmly against the linoleum. The room stilled. Even the laughter choked into silence. One Marine looked at the veteran, then at the men who had mocked him, and finally spoke, his voice like steel wrapped in velvet. "We don't leave our own behind." Another added, almost a whisper but heavy enough to shake the air, "Respect is not requested. It's owed." The young men shifted in their seats, their bravado collapsing under the weight of those words. The cashier, her hands trembling, handed the veteran his plate. A full meal, steaming and fragrant. No charge. The veteran didn't look at the men who had mocked him. He didn't need to. His silence was louder than any argument, his dignity untouchable. He simply sat down, unfolded his napkin, and began to eat. Behind him, the Marines stayed at the door, not as guards, but as a statement. A reminder that some battles are fought without bullets, and some victories are won with nothing more than standing firm. The veteran lifted his first bite. A thought passed through him, clear and steady. True strength never needs to announce itself. And in that diner, everyone knew it was true. Silent heroes walk among us every day, carrying stories we may never fully understand. Respect costs nothing, yet it can mean everything. What do you think real honor looks like? Comment where you're watching from, and share this story if you believe dignity should never be laughed at. For more stories that honor the unseen battles of silent heroes, subscribe and join this journey.